to the Disney Red Panda podcast, where we get a little overexcited about our creative endeavors, which today includes mostly knitting and some sewing as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm Cheryl, just outside of St. Paul, Minnesota. You can find me on Ravelry as Red and Instagram as Red Knitter.
I'm Katie, and I'm from Duluth, Minnesota, which is at the very tip of Lake Superior. And on Ravelry and Instagram, I'm known as Nerdy and Plaid.
If you want to know more about anything that we talk about today, we have show notes down below, and you're always welcome to ask a question or leave a comment. We would love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
So we have a complete personality change. In which Katie does not have finished objects. If you've seen our previous episodes, she has been on a bender this summer, and she's finally slowed down a little bit, so that's exciting. She'll have some new stuff to show us soon.
And I'm excited to see what you finished, because it sounds super cute. So why don't you go ahead, because I want to see. And it's not one thing, it's two things that you finished, two really big things.
Two finished objects. So the first is actually, it's a big object physically. It was not a big amount of labor. Okay. I guess it didn't take me that long. So my little 19-month-old son just started back in school, which is very exciting. And at school, they sleep on cots for nap time, and he needed something that he could sleep on. So, of course, I can't just, send something store-bought with him. That's not an option. So I took him with me to JoAnn's to pick out some construction truck polar fleece that he would like, because he loves looking at trucks. Mm-hmm. So we got a big chunk of fleece for him, and I cut it down, and I did this blanket stitch around the edges here. And I actually used leftover Regia sock yarn for this in a bright red, which isn't showing up great on camera with my lighting today, but you can kind of see.
Yeah. That's a great use for leftover yarn, too.
Unfortunately, it did not use all of it. That would have been really amazing, because I had quite a bit left over. But it was nice to use it up, and I wanted something that would show up a little bit more than an embroidery floss.
Yep.
So that's why I was like, well, I could use, I'll stick 6 strands of embroidery floss and buy a ton of those little tiny hanks. Or I could just use some of the stinking sock yarn that I have sitting around. So that's what I did here. It's so washable. So that's nice. And then, of course, because it's sort of an institutional situation, his name has to be on everything. So I embroidered it.
Oh, you do such a great job at that detail work.
I'm really excited about this because I'm not always great with embroidery. It's something that I enjoy because it feels kind of like doing a coloring book. Because you trace it out and then you pick your fun colors.
Yes.
So I really enjoy embroidery. I'm not super skilled at it.
Okay.
And this time I tried I'm pretty sure a new to me stitch. I did a split stitch for this, and I think it turned out really well.
That looks beautiful. It looks like it's braided of sort. Mm-hmm. It's a knit stitch, so it works really well.
Yeah, it works great. So I'm really pleased with how that turned out, and the whole thing took me just a few days of working on it here and there. So it wasn't a big expenditure of time, and I feel better sending him to school with something handmade. That's a good thing. And he took a nap on his first day with his blankie, so that's huge. We didn't think that was going to happen.
Well, I'm glad that it's going so well for him, even just in the first few days. Yeah,
exactly. I am too. It's been really good so far. Fingers crossed for this coming week.
What else did you finish?
I finished my So Faded pullover. Yay. I'm going to sort of show it. Yay!
Oh, I love how those colors blended together. That's gorgeous.
Here's my 3/4 length sleeves. They are both in existence. Yay! And I finished this a few nights ago, and I texted Katie in a panic because I had blocked it, and I put it out on my blocking thing. I have one of those sweater drying, just the flat ones that you unfold. So I had it on that. And I thought, oh, this looks really big, and it's super wash yarn, which can stretch. And, I had washed my swatch. and it was okay in the swatch, but I was just like, oh, it looks kind of big. But I tried it on once it dried, and we're good.
Okay.
It's maybe a little bit bigger than I was expecting, but it still fits really nicely. And I'm very, yeah.
And I get cold weather up here, so if you can't get cold weather down there, I think maybe you should come up for like a day trip.
That's an excellent idea, and I think spending a day in gas money on photographing my finished sweater, that makes sense.
I think so.
I love it. Yeah, it's supposed to cool down here, but it's also supposed to rain. So hopefully I can get a photo for this. If it's not in the episode when you're watching it, click over to my Ravelry page because hopefully I'll have some up there pretty soon and you can see what the whole thing looks like. So there's not a whole lot more to say about this except yay. And if you want to know more about the yarns that I used and the mods I made, again, you can look at my Rav page. But I will show you another thing I texted Katie about when I was working on was, so this is a crew neck sweater, and I wanted a really quick and easy way to tell the front from the back. And she suggested getting some cute tags, which I still may do, but I need to do some serious Etsy shopping. If I'm gonna.
Well, that's a hardship.
So, yeah, it's gonna be rough, but like I'm gonna need to compare all my options.
Yes,
because this is a big decision. Because of course it needs to go on everything. So for now, anyway, I just did a little crochet chain loop that you maybe can or can't see right here.
There you go.
In the back, so that way I have a little something there, but it also blends in, so it's not like it's showing through on the right side or anything like that.
I think that's a great idea. Like I hadn't, until you mentioned it, I hadn't thought about that.
And a lot of sweaters, it's really not a concern, but I mean, sometimes you do have sweaters and you want to make sure, I mean, this one, if I hold it up, there's a clear front and back.
Right.
Like you can even see it on camera now. Some sweaters aren't so much, and if you are a person who has boobs, then you probably want to wear it the same way every time so you don't like have the stretched out parted back.
Yes, that would look a little bit awkward, I think. Well, I was also thinking about, like, if you happen to get dressed in the dark most mornings because you're in a rush, I mean, no adult ever does that. Then you want to make sure that your, clothes are not on inside out and facing the right direction. That's helpful.
Yeah. This is a fail-safe.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that sweater turned out beautifully. What do you think about the overall construction of the pattern?
I think it's really nice. I'm very pleased with it. It was nice and easy to do. It would have been all the easier had I not done a fade, honestly, because then you have less counting to do. So like, for instance, when I was working on the sleeves, I was counting how many rows I had in between decreases at the same time as I was paying attention to how long I had worked each color or making sure that I had done the fade for 10 rows, which is what she asks for. So that got to be more record keeping than I normally would have liked for what amounts to a plain stockinette sweater. Right. But it turned out really lovely. I think it was worth the effort.
Yeah, I absolutely think it was. And it's 4 skeins out of your stash as well?
5. Although, of course, I have leftovers on all of them.
Oh, got it.
So I'm going to have to decide what to do with all of that.
Well, those are 2 really big finished objects. I mean, you finished fingering weight sweater very quickly. So go you.
Yay.
We're like proving that monogamous knitting can be really worthwhile.
Yes. I think so. It's nice to have it done and to get to move on to something shiny and new. Okay, so tell me what you're working on, Katie.
All right. So I got the Phobal Fight cable hat that I was working on, the mustard color one. Got a couple of rows of work, but it doesn't look any different. So I'm not going to show it. I did, because I have to apparently have something yellowish mustard on this episode. I actually went back to tips, and so I was working on my Unum On by Heidi Alander. This is a shawl. It's a garter stitch shawl, worsted weight, and I have just gotten to almost through the first full repeat of the lace on the bottom. So again, it's not super impressive right now, but it's a nice, easy lace pattern. that works for me. I should say brain space wise, I have to be careful about when I work on it, but at least, it's like 300 stitches on a row back. So it doesn't, and it's a really simple lace repeat, which is something that I appreciate right now, but it should be done pretty soon, I think.
That color is stunning.
I really like it. It glows, and I think it's it's going to be a great color for fall.
Oh, absolutely. How big does that end up being? I'm not familiar with that pattern.
It is, so I've got about 300 stitches on the needles right now. So it is probably going to be like my wingspan. So it's,
oh wow.
It's going to be large, but it's not going to be overly deep. So I think it will be a nice, the way I wear my shawls is just to throw it around my neck like a cowl. And so I think it will be a great one for that.
Awesome.
And it's nice. I don't plan to overly block it because I like the garter squish.
I do too.
Yeah. What are you working on?
Okay, so I'm in sort of an odd spot with my projects where I've just finished this big sweater and I'm sort of, I don't know, in a transitional space right now. So I have a few things that I'm sort of getting into. And the first is really utilitarian sewing. I've been making these pants for my son, we cloth diaper, which means that he has this giant butt. And it can be hard to find clothes that fit because he's also pretty short compared, for his age or whatever. So if you get them that fit in the butt, then they're too long. And so it's a whole thing. So I've been making these big butt pants that have a gusset built in.
Good.
Yeah, they look really cute on. They're sort of legging style pants. The pattern is by Brindle Twig, and it's just a really nice, easy pattern. So I've made a set of these in gray and navy and black twice now, and I'm just gonna make another set in the next size up. So I started making these when he was maybe like 6 months, something like that. And this one, my tag says 6 to 9 months. So I must have started with a 3 to 6 month size. He's now 19 months and he still fits into these. Like they're just getting small now. So, I'm probably just going to go to the 9 month size.
Well, I'm guessing that they have quite a bit of stretch in them too. Okay.
Yeah, and they have these cuffs, just like if you have kids, maybe you've seen the Max Saloons that are meant to fit for like a gajillion years. It's kind of the same concept here. Like these, you can have the little cuffs you can have folded up when they're shorter, and then as they grow taller, you can fold them down. So they do last for quite a while. He's been wearing these ones for at least half a year, maybe a year. And they're just like, they're starting to get a little tight. So I'm going to whip some of those up, and they're so quick. Like it takes me about the same time to cut them out as it does to sew them together. So,
oh my goodness, that's great. I am going to just say that. So in the show notes, Cheryl has these down as big butt pants, and my brain immediately goes to lyrics. So I went a lot, which is highly inappropriate. Oh yeah. So like I've been trying not to sing out loud while you've been talking, but I just thought that needed to be said.
And it's not my name. It is the official pattern company name.
And it fits perfectly because they are for, people wearing diapers, and like, I get it, but it's the brain thing. Highly inappropriate songs is what I jump on.
It's fine. Okay, what else are you working on?
So I actually got started on, once it gets to be fall, I really like to cast on hats. Hats are kind of my jam right now. And so I actually cast on the split back snowflake hat by Susan B. Anderson that we discussed last episode. So I started this on Monday, the 10th, and it is
wow.
Monday. And so yeah, I'm not doing the split back version, but let's see if I can get a better picture.
That looks great, Katie.
So I'm getting there.
Wow.
I'm almost done with a chart. Since I should show off the floats, which aren't, some of the floats are really, really long. And so I've been trying to figure out a better way to hook those in, and I've just been kind of winging it. So
that looks great.
So yeah, I I really like it. It is something definitely that I have to think about. And I can see why people get addicted to this, but it's something that I have to think about. So I can do a few rows a night. I just can't have anything else on while I do it. Some of my sections aren't very even, but I'm just like, it'll block out. It'll totally block out.
Oh, it totally will. And it looks really even to me. It does.
It's not, but... So one thing that I did was I started this on size 16, US size 16 needles. And I discovered that the way I knit, I use the entire kind of this area to hold on to the needle. And so a 16-inch needle, when I was doing, working both fingers, just wasn't working for me. So one of my interchangeable needle sets, I have the Haya steel sharps, which are excellently pointy and good stabbing. I love these. These were the first set of interchangeables I got. But they do come with a cord that's meant for a 16-inch needle. Or to make a 16-inch needle. I have the 5-inch needle shafts. That means when I add the cord, these become an 18-inch needle. Just like those 2 extra inches just on the needle shaft work perfectly for me. But yeah, I think it's going all right.
So how are you holding your yarn with the 2 color work?
I am naturally a picker. So I usually hold my yarn in my left hand. I knit continentally, but because I work at the yarn shop, I often have to help people who knit English style, so who are throwers. So I actually taught myself how to knit that way so I could better help them. So I'm comfortable using both hands, and so that's what I'm using. So my dominant color, which is the natural color, I hold in my right hand, and the blue I'm holding in my left. Mm-hmm. And that's working out pretty well. There are a couple of spaces like here, like in the middle section, where it's a little bit tight. But I think once it's wet, I'm going to go through with kind of like a small double point and just kind of give it a little extra tug to help it out. And yeah, it's going well. I did, and I've already picked up, of course I picked up yarn. I picked up yarn to do another type of colorwork hat. So I'm kind of excited.
Yay.
Yeah. I'm
really proud of you for jumping in like you have.
What's the worst that can happen? It's knitting. It's supposed to be my hobby. It's supposed to be enjoyable. Sometimes challenging, but I'm supposed to, grow my skills is how I feel like it. And this is a good way to do that. Mm-hmm. You are working on another colorwork thing that is insanity, and I love it. This is like what I aspire to do someday. Maybe not, but this level.
So... this is a whip from the vault. This is the Crazed Scandinavian cowl by Wendy.
Oh, really slowly, because that is stunning.
Wendy D. Johnson's pattern. It is insane. Oh my god. Okay, friends. So I started knitting this cowl when I was pregnant because I tend to be a sweater knitter. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, I don't want to knit sweaters while I'm pregnant because I don't know what's going to happen with my body size and everything. And I needed a big project to work on, so I had loved this when it came out. I think I bought it right away. Yeah, and so I was like, well, this is kind of like a sweater. In terms of the amount of work that goes into it.
Yes.
So I had started knitting it when I was pregnant. I didn't finish it, obviously. I'm not quite sure what happened. I don't know. I don't remember what happened. I was pregnant. I had other things on my mind. So I pulled this out to work on it I think last winter, if I remember right. And actually, when I did, I texted Katie, I'm pulling out my crazed Scandinavian cowl. And she's like, what? What are you talking about? And I was like, yeah, I'm just going to work on it again. And she's like, oh, I thought you meant a different kind of pull out. So I'm pulling it out again. This kind, where I knit it.
Yes.
So I thought, since it's starting to get cooler again, I would grab it. My mind kind of goes towards colorwork at this time of year. And what I would like to do, so I just revisited this a couple days ago and like checked in with where I am on it. This has a gajillion charts, like pages and pages of charts. And I have 8 charts left.
Okay.
So if I were to get through one chart for each of our podcast episodes, because we're recording every other week.
Yes.
I should be able to get it done and wear it on Christmas.
That sounds like a wonderful plan.
Right?
It also sounds like timed knitting, which can sometimes sound like obligation knitting now.
Crazy pants knitting. Yeah. We'll see. I think that having a goal like that can be good for something like this that just keeps on going.
Yeah.
Keeps on going. So I neglected to mention one part of the crazy that I should mention. So when I was picking out yarn, I went to the yarn shop and I was like looking for something that would work and something that wouldn't cost me an insane amount, and wound up with yarn that I thought in the store was fingering weight. It's not, you guys. It's lace weight. It's lace weight yarn that I'm making this giant colorwork cowl with. Good plan.
What yarn is it?
I can't pronounce it, so I'm going to show you the tag. Where is it from? It's made in Denmark.
Oh.
So if you know how to pronounce, is Spinny, maybe? Spinny something or other, lace weight yarn. It's a single. It's very rustic feeling, which is fine with me, even though it's going to be around my neck. And records show that I am using size 0 needles. That's great.
Ooh, that brings that yarn choice plus needle size definitely brings a whole new level to the crazed part of crazed Scandinavian.
Yeah, that was unintentional.
But it is stunning. I love what you have so far. You know, once you have that finished object, though, that is going to be stunning. Absolutely stunning to wear.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be able to wear it. And it's just like it's not potato chippy, but in its own way.
Okay.
It motivates me to keep going forward. It's really fun to watch all of the different patterns emerge.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like how like each section is different, so it's not like you have 8 feet of the same motif over and over again. It changes slightly.
I don't think I could do that.
No. I know I couldn't, but... Mm-hmm. All right, so my last project that I've been actively working on, I started it, I don't know, a couple of days after we recorded last, but it's another Thomas sweater by Kelly Van Niekerk.
Oh, so pretty.
And it's like the 2-year-old size, maybe. So I'm just finishing the body. I'm actually getting ready to bind off right now. I talked about this pattern before because I love this pattern. I'm doing it out of a sportish DK weight. It's the Malabrigo Royo in Azul Profundo. Profundo? I feel it should have more fancy, but it's not. Like, I am a German speaker. That's what you get. So it's like a navy blue, like a teal navy bluish, I guess.
It looks like a TARDIS blue.
That would be better. But darker, but yeah. So I love it. It will have short sleeves because I only have this much yarn left. So once I'm done with the body, I'll split this in 2 and then just knit the sleeves down to use as much yarn as I can. And I don't know, I have a few choices for buttons and I don't know what I'm going to use yet. So that's kind of I can't take color work. I can't take lace. My brain is fried. I need some stockinette. Yeah. So this works up really nicely. Yeah, so that's all I'm working on. What is the last thing that you're working on or getting ready to work on?
Yeah, I'm calling this like a pre-whip. Because it's been taking a lot of my mental space and frankly some of my knitting time recently. But I've been busy looking for yarn for my Gale poncho that we mentioned in the last episode when we were talking about our fall knitting plans. And I'm still really, really excited about this project. But it has been a process trying to find yarn for it. So when we talked about fall projects, I mentioned I have yarn for the other ones in my stash, and this poncho is the only one that I was really looking for yarn for. And it was challenging. So it calls for chunky yarn. And I wanted to have a semi-solid that would be really a versatile color, and I wanted something that wasn't a single because I didn't want to end up a giant pilly mess.
Right.
That's my criteria for yarn.
And you've summarized that quite a bit, but we went back and forth for a while about ideas, saying, what do you think about this? And so it is definitely, I would say the process is definitely the word there. Yeah,
and it's a piece that I want to wear like all the time this chilly season. And it's something that I was willing to drop some money on, and I can be kind of cheap about yarn. Like, I like nice yarn, but I'm also very budget conscious when it comes to it. So I don't take spending a lot on yarn lightly.
Okay.
And I wanted to make sure that I was really getting what I wanted. So I started by going to my very local yarn shop. It is less than 2 miles down the street from me. It's a lovely little shop called Knitting from the Heart. And so I really wanted to buy yarn from them, and I was hoping to buy yarn from them. So I went in, I had my kiddo with me, he tore all around the store and had a great time. And he had a great time. He found all of the orange yarn, because orange is his favorite color.
Oh, okay.
He was having fun. He was largely well-behaved.
He's your child, so I know he was.
Yeah, he was. I wouldn't let him misbehave in a shop. So I started there, and I said, oh, do you have bulkies in? And she's like, yeah. And so they had Malabrigo Mecha, I think is their single ply bulky, right? Yeah. So that's a single ply, and that was kind of a bummer because I was hoping that Malabrigo would work out because that's a nice price point. Mm-hmm. And obviously really beautiful colors and everything. So I was kind of hoping Malabrigo would work out, but their only bulky was that single ply. So that was, ouch. And then they had... Can
I have you elaborate on why you said that's out? We've had this conversation, but I think it's good maybe to explain a little bit further about it. I think it's interesting when people talk about their process and kind of like that decision-making step-by-steps so we can understand.
Yeah, so the problem is that Malabrigo has such beautiful colors that it has sort of a siren's call that I really would have loved to go with a Malabrigo because I like a lot of their colorways.
Yeah.
But a single ply, just because of how it's constructed, and you can probably elaborate on this more than I can as a spinner, it's gonna pill. That's just how it is. And so I see people, I would see people when I did work in the shop getting Malabrigo worsted, which is also a single ply yarn.
Right.
To make a cowl or something that's going to get a lot of friction from things like jackets and hair and stuff like that. It's going to pill a lot. And something like a poncho where I'm moving my arms around, there's friction happening there. And I'm guessing the underarms and down the sides would end up pilled, as would wherever my purse falls against it.
Yeah.
Or wherever I'm carrying my kiddo against my hip, Yeah. So then they also had, this was one that I frankly didn't even look at. They had one from Plymouth that I wasn't familiar with, but it was an acrylic blend, and I really wanted something that felt luxurious for this sweater. So I'm not against acrylic blends at all. I use them all the time, but for this particular project, I just wanted something that just felt expensive, frankly.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
And she did say that she had some Cascade coming in, but because Cascade is either solid or semi-solid, that wasn't something that I was interested in coming back and taking a look at because, like I said, they have either solid or heathered, and I wanted something semi-solid. So that wasn't something that I was gonna come back and check out. I'm not sure which Cascade she was referring to, so it might have been one that the structure of the yarn worked really nicely, but the color wasn't what I was looking for this project.
Right, and for your other project, the shawl, is it the Brooklyn tweed shawl?
Yep.
You already have a Cascade 220 as well. So you're already going to be working with that yarn.
Yeah, so that was a bummer because I wanted to shop there. And then I decided to go to the Yarnery in St. Paul, which Katie and I like to visit together because you can get chocolate cake right next door.
Yes. Completely different buildings, but it is worth it.
Very worth it if you're ever in town. So I went there and they just didn't have a whole lot of selection for bulky. So I don't know if they hadn't gotten it in yet or if that just isn't what would work for their clientele. I don't shop there super frequently, so I'm not really familiar with their, regular offerings or anything like that.
So I have been there several times. It's a beautiful yarn shop, but it is also a very small shop. It's like the bottom, it's like the main floor of a house. Of a small house. And they do have it arranged really nicely. There's a lot of selection in there, but I feel like it's a lot of single skeins or just a couple skeins of each color instead of sweater quantities of yarn, shall we say.
Yes, it definitely feels well curated. Mm-hmm. Like I would call that a curated shop that you're really going there for something specific. And so I knew that they carried a lot of very nice high-end yarns, which is why I thought I would go and take a look at if they had any options for me.
Right.
And I don't think I was off base in checking there, but they didn't have a whole lot for bulkies.
Well, and even though you didn't get anything there, you also, when you looked, you got a better idea of what else is out on the market. What are your other choices? So I find that even just being able to go through that thought process of this is what I'm looking for, does this pass the test of what I'm looking for, does this work at minimum? Just, being aware of what's out there because the yarn that they might have might be great for another project, but just not this one. And so that now. And I think that's a good process to go through. Plus, hopefully you got chocolate cake out of it.
We had just had breakfast. Okay. We didn't get chocolate cake this time, but we did go to, there's also a very cute children's bookstore just a block and a half down the street. So we went there, which is fun.
Okay. So you went to the Yarnery. Did you go into any other yarn shops? Like physical?
That was it for me this time. There are several other yarn shops in the Twin Cities metro area, broadly conceived, that I could have gone to, but honestly, I wanted to get started.
Yeah.
And I had some concerns about, I had already gone to 2 very different yarn shops and hadn't found what I was looking for, like really even very close to what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't really confident that I would find that if I kept looking. Like I may have eventually.
Right.
But I wanted to get going. And so I decided, I'm going to stop there. I'm going to order online because it's going to take a little while to get here and I want to get going on my project.
Am I allowed to look at this now?
Okay, so I've been keeping this from Katie. So I ultimately ordered Madeline Tosh Chunky and you can click on it now. Okay. And the colorway is Turn, which is a beautiful gray. Yes, I'm very excited. So I've said before, I think that my husband is an artist. I bother him with color choices for all of this stuff. I actually chose this one and he backed me up that it would be a good choice. So
I love this color. Like it's definitely gray, but I feel like there are enough other tones of color that you could do taupe or blue or purple or any other color. I feel like it will go with anything. I mean, well, gray does because that's the nature of gray. But I think in this particular, I love this depth of color. It's stunning.
And that's why I wanted to go with Madeline Tosh's because like their colors are amazing. Like whenever I look through, oftentimes when I'm starting a project, I'll look through like everybody's finished project. And the ones that really pop out to me are almost always with Madeline Tosh yarns. Like they're just like lit within. They're beautiful. So I'm really excited for this. I haven't gotten a shipping notification yet. I'm really excited to see this in person and get started on my project.
And now you have like that anticipation of just getting ready to go. Absolutely. Yeah. I think we should talk about, how do you prioritize, as you put it, the buying in your LYS and shopping for things online? Because I think I think that's an interesting discussion to have. And I know that I think we have some similar views, but I think we approach it in very different ways.
Yeah, we're very different yarn choppers. And we always have been very different yarn choppers. Mm-hmm. So this was a really challenging one for me because right now I don't buy a ton of yarn. I use my stash for a lot of it. So the last time, let's see, I bought yarn at a couple of events, and that's been for gifts. That hasn't even been for me. And then the last time I bought yarn was probably like last year for Christmas stockings, if I remember right. Mm-hmm. So this isn't something that I do super frequently, and I wanted to support my yarn shop with this purchase because it was a bigger one. And that's why I looked at 2 different shops before buying online and feeling like I know I'm supporting a small business and all of that. Like, that still feels good. But I want my brick and mortar yarn shops to continue existing. And I know that I need to financially support them in order for them to do that.
I agree. I know that maybe we're biased in this because we have both worked at the same yarn shop, but so Yarn Harbor in Duluth is my main yarn shop. It really does have a strong community emphasis. I mean, there's a lot of classes, and as well as several knitting groups meet there every single week, and they have for a long time. And that's how I got started actually in with a yarn shop and being part of that community. And so I want to support that place as much as possible, not just because I work there and teach there, but I think it's a really important resource to have as well, especially we hear a lot about, local yarn stores closing. We want to support those community local businesses as much as possible. I agree with you. So if I need a large project, or usually when I first start shopping for something, I see if Yarn Harbor has it first. So then how do you decide whether you're going to look for something online, whether that's at other like online yarn shops like Webs or even Madeline, Tosh, or, the indies as well? How do you make that decision, I guess?
So, okay, well, I think this also goes back to how we buy yarn.
Yes.
more broadly speaking, like not just where we're buying it, but how we're approaching the buying process. So for me, I almost always buy yarn with a project in mind. It's quite rare that I just buy something because it's pretty. And I think I might be in the minority there. It seems like a lot of knitters buy yarn that they love and then they figure out what to do with it later. That stresses me out. And honestly, that causes a lot of indecision for me. So that's why I have a little bit of trouble buying at festivals, because there's just so much and I feel like I want to buy things, but I don't know what to buy. Anyway, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, so I'm completely the opposite. Yes. I have no problem buying yarn. Like, I'm really good at that. I have a great curated stash.
You do.
And I feel like if it's pretty, I'll buy it. I generally have like a general idea of, oh, this could be hat or mittens or socks, or it would be really pretty in a shawl. But I do shop my stash a bit because I know what I have. I do buy things because they're pretty. Usually that's why I buy something before having a specific project in mind. I look at yarn then. Anyway. Yeah, that going through that whole picking project is another thing.
Yeah, so since I'm buying with a project in mind, and because I really want to support my local shops, it makes sense in most cases, not in all cases, but in most cases to go and check out the shops first and see if they might have what I'm looking for. Yeah. And in a lot of cases they do. And then if they don't, I mean, like in this situation that I just had, I tried two yarn shops. They didn't have it. I wanted to get going. And in this case, I knew I would really love it. Like I knew enough about this yarn. I don't know if I've seen this one in person, honestly, but I really love the brand. That I was okay going with it online. But I don't buy online very often. And when I do, it's often something that I already know. I'm less likely to be like, oh, I'll give that a try, especially when it comes to like indies and stuff. I'm probably not going to. Like, I would rather see them at a festival.
Got it.
And actually look at it in person first.
So I've gotten more into breeds of sheep as well that I want to try and just kind of get a hand at. And oftentimes, while my local yarn store has a really good selection of different types of yarn, not everything is breed specific. And so I've been doing a bit of shopping and figuring out, because I want to try these things, both for knitting and spinning with. I also am very supportive of indies. I think that's the nicest way to say that. But I have certain indie dyers that I really like buying from because I like their products and I like their quality and I know them very well. So for example, Three Irish Girls, yes, I've touched them and I know I know the owners, and that's not like a humble brag. I know their process, and yes, I have zero problems buying for them. Knitted Wit is another one that I've had experience with, and there are several other ones that I have experience with because we don't get a whole lot of shows up here. Sometimes it's just, I have to go off of the recommendations of others as well. So I'm okay doing that. I'm like, it's one skein of yarn. I will be okay with this. And if I don't like it, I can sell it again. I can do a destash. So I'm a little bit more, I'm okay being a bit more fluid with my yarn, though I should be fair. I've never destashed anything and I'm okay with it.
But you could if you wanted to.
But I could if I wanted to. I should also say that oftentimes if I buy something and it's not quite for me anymore, I will often buy something to touch it and then I'll give it away as a gift. I like to give yarn as gifts as well. And Cheryl's been on the receiving end of this. But I like to, like, especially with sock yarns, and I like supporting like those different kinds. And just because there's a limited amount. So I do buy on Etsy a bit. And I guess I'm okay just touching it and going with it. I should also say another thing about prioritizing from, my LYS to buying online, leaving indies out of it, is I know this sucks and I wish I could get it out of my brain, but if there is a sale, like yarn sale, I'm like, ooh, what's going on? I'm like, no, you don't need to do that. I've gotten much better at talking myself out of that, but now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, I've stashed up, I need to use what I have. And so for buying in person, if I can buy it in person, I would love to buy it in person just to see all those vibrant colors. But sometimes my yarn store that I'm going to doesn't have what I want. And usually if I'm visiting another yarn store, if I buy something, it's a brand that my yarn store does not usually carry.
Right.
Just as I don't know. That makes it a bit more of a souvenir yarn for me. Sale yarn is another thing. That's usually like a superwash for me. Things that I can use for baby knits and stuff like that. Or self-striping. I do have a strong self-striping addiction. I could start a gang. Anyway. So I would like to know from viewers, how do you make that decision? Because I think it's not only looking at yourself as a buyer, but also your priorities about whether you're a project knitter like you are, Cheryl, or if you are having if you're just looking at it for pretty colors and wanting to experiment. I think all of those are valid reasons for buying yarn, and I'm not just saying that to validate my own buying habits, but I think it's how we all view yarn I think that it is worth hearing like different points of view, because I think we can all learn from that. I'm so excited for you to start this project.
Me too.
Any other things you wanted to add?
I think that's it today.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this episode.
Yes.
Feel free to like and subscribe if you want to see more of us. Hopefully you do. I would really like it if you would. That sounds a little bit like begging, and that's not what I'm going for. Otherwise, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Cheryl will finish more stuff by then. She'll be a little bit more crazed Scandinavian, and maybe I'll finish something as well.
No pressure.
No promise. No pressures either. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.